On everybody. Check. Yeah, here we go. All right. Pardon the delay. Got some shit going on. But here we are. Welcome to the Dominance Academy. I'm your host, Mr. Justin. And today we're going to talk about cultivating her submission. So I've got to check my audio things here. What's going on? Listen. Oh, there we go. Couldn't hear shit in my ears. All right. Off to a rocky start, but here we are. So we're talking about steps to cultivating her submission. Now, I get guys who are wanting to know this information fairly often. Typically because they're in situations where they're with a girl, like they're married, they've got a girlfriend or something like that, and either she's like really standoffish, she's like kind of a bitch, or things are just really I don't know, just too like easygoing, too humdrum, too regular. There's no spark, there's no polarity, and and he like sees glimpses into this other world, and it's like, oh man, I want that. Occasionally I do get women coming to me asking for a similar, and that's actually a much harder thing to do because the woman is so ready to get into this world and submit. And it's hard to say to a guy, hey, let's work on this stuff, because you know what happens almost all the time? He takes it personally. Like, he takes it as an offensive criticism that he's not good enough. And then so his pride gets hurt. He gets all grumpy and shit and starts pouting in the corner. I kid you not. And then it just becomes this big problem. And so women tend to, not, they come to me, but then it just doesn't go that much farther. Yeah. But yeah, this sort of stuff happens quite often. A lot of unsatisfied stuff. So, cultivating her submission. So let's say you are in a particular situation where the girl is there, she's receptive. Let's just say that, right? So let's just say you're in a situation where you've got a girl, she is receptive, and you just don't really know how to cultivate that any much further. And the thing is that the keys to it don't differ much further than how you would deal with a woman, like just in any other thing, because it all centers around emotion. Man, I've got like this crazy delay, really crazy delay on the video. Let's see what happens if I leave the studio and come back. All right, that's better. Let me just double check my settings here. Okay, yeah. I was having this weird lag on my end. So yeah, so the stuff isn't anything really much further than with a woman, right? Just like who's not, into submission, where maybe she's uncomfortable or she's not, I guess, like behaving in a certain way. A lot of it just comes down to safety and trust. Okay. So that's really the first thing is promoting and building a foundation of trust. And that comes through, well, partially through demonstrating reliability and consistency in your actions to earn her confidence. And consistency is probably the most important one. And the one that guys think they're doing just fine at, but they're not at all. Like you'd be surprised at how often guys think that they're being consistent, but they're actually not. And this thing, it actually confuses women. It confuses women like to no end because it's all like feeling based, right? So like I know it's hard for us to imagine because we're not emotional beings, but how women perceive a thing and they interact with a thing, including like people, environments, and things of that nature, it sends signals to their emotions. So you could imagine if that stuff, the stimuli was shifting, causing varied emotional stimuli. You could imagine how that could be difficult. And but the guy thinks he's being consistent, but he's just being consistently inconsistent. And this causes not so good feelings. When something is not consistent, it's hard to trust it. It's hard to trust that it's going to show up the same every single day in every single situation. Yes, every single situation. You're steady whether it's a positive, neutral, or negative situation. You're steady whether she's upset, whether she's elated, whether she's angry, whether she's crying, whether she's asleep, whether she's awake, she's on her period, she's eating ice cream. You're steady. It doesn't fucking matter like what's going on in the environment, what's going on with her. Your state is steady. It does not fluctuate. That's what women respond to. I almost said this is what they look for, but they're not looking for it, just maybe instinctually looking for it. But they don't like look for it consciously. But it's what their emotions are seeking because they are full of chaos. Remember, the universe seeks to balance itself out. So if they've got all this chaotic energy inside them, they're looking for something that is stable and singular. Okay? And so that's the first part of it. First part of building trust is being consistent. Okay? The next one is effective communication and boundaries. So you're going to want to establish clear, open communication and mutually agreed upon boundaries to foster a safe environment. And I would say, just use your head. I mean, you don't have to ask her like, oh, what are your boundaries? Except in the case of high-level kink type stuff, like, hey, do you like to play with knives that are, so sharp they can slice a piece of paper? Okay, like that's obvious. Do you like to play with fire? Or just obvious things where you'd want to discuss it. Okay, I think it's more important, since women are so reactive, is to understand your own boundaries better, to understand your own rules. And then you want to establish clear and open communication. So don't ever like hold something back. Okay? If there's something that you need to speak up on, you just immediately speak up on it directly, concisely. You don't want to bring it up like a week later. You don't want to get butthurt. Remember, steadiness. Okay? And things are addressed right away. Okay. And, but I wouldn't be like questioning her and shit like that. Like you make statements. You don't like, I don't know, because I was actually, I don't know if Dylan is still here, but I was talking to Dylan about questions. We were chatting last night. And when you ask questions, it's kind of like you're submitting some energy onto the field. Okay. And once you do that, you're waiting for a response. And so now you've given a little bit of leverage on their end whenever you ask a question. So I typically don't ask questions unless it's of dire importance. I really don't ask questions. I make statements, and that's pretty much it. And if I do want to know something, I just make it a statement. Like, tell me what your favorite ice cream flavor is. Even though I've never asked that, I'm just saying, as an example. So the third one is consistent reinforcement and encouragement. So to help her submission, you need the consistency, but you also need to encourage it, and you need to use positive reinforcement. So you use that and gentle guidance to encourage her submission, helping her feel valued and understood. Okay. So the idea is you've got building trust, okay, with your consistency and things of that nature, using effective communication and expressing your own boundaries and rules, but not going fucking crazy with it. You're not creating like dynamic rules or contract rules. You're just establishing boundaries, and then having positive reinforcement and encouragement. Okay. And the reason for that is submission is a scary thing. It's a totally scary thing for girls to do. And the reason for that is it calls upon some of their greatest fears. And so don't think that just because the girl got on her knees, just because the girl called you daddy, just because the girl let you spank her, just because whatever sort of thing happened, right? Or something that she said, or something you did or said, that does not mean any sort of deep dynamic happened. That does not mean she's actually submitted. Because the act of submission, what it is a letting go of one's identity. It's a letting go of will. It's a letting go of, well, it's not the entire identity. It's like the part of one's identity that makes one feel safe in the world without anyone else. And if one has operated with this sense of identity for quite some time, to give that up would be scary. And I don't think guys can truly, like, who've never been in that position, I don't think you could possibly imagine what that must be. Like the fear and discomfort involved in even attempting to do it. And so I would say another part of it, I know it's not 3 parts, but the 4th part would be patience. Because some girls, they're more comfortable. They're okay with introspection and diving into diving into parts of their ego, just getting into the muck, right? Getting into shadow work, getting into feeling the edges of their attachments and their resistances. Some girls are very good at going into those areas, and other girls are not. Like, they want to, but they're so scared. They're so afraid. And one of the biggest fears is that they're going to be destroyed. Because you see, the more a woman submits, and I'm talking like real submission, when a woman truly submits, the softer and more vulnerable she becomes. And as she becomes softer and more vulnerable, the chances for damage gets higher. right? So the softer something is, the more easy it's damaged. So, it's like having a hard-boiled egg, but instead of peeling it off, like cracking and peeling off a shell, imagine you're sanding it. And you're sanding it and sanding it and sanding it until there's just the hard-boiled egg inside. The hard-boiled yolk, right? And the white part. And to that, the damage that it takes, or like the amount of force it takes to damage that is so low, right? So this is what happens with a woman. This is what happens to her identity and her ego and her sense of self and all this shit when she starts submitting, because it feels good, right? Because that shell, they know that shell is unnecessary and heavy sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily do much for them aside from protect them from emotional harm. Okay. And this is a relief. Okay, it's a relief to remove that shell, but at the same time, it's like, oh, now look at you, right? Now you can be damaged so easily by such little force, and your life could be over. And girls know this. Either they know it through experience, or they know it just through the intrinsic knowledge of their own emotions. That if I let this guy have control of the situation, if I let go of my own control and hand over my will to him, that there is a chance that he's going to drop me, and I'm just going to splat and shatter over the floor. And maybe some guys would be like, you know what? I don't give a fuck, right? In which case, you'll never learn how to do this for me. In my years of doing this, I've turned down about a dozen guys. So there's not a lot of fucked up guys out there who want to learn these things. They just probably learned it on their own, but they don't come to me. Looks like I need to spray the fuck out of a dog right now. Hold on a second. Right. Yeah, my dog just fucking goes crazy sometimes over nothing. Like literally nothing. So that's the idea around what's necessary. Okay. So let's look at the building of the foundation of trust. Okay. So like I mentioned, you're going to want to have the consistency of actions. Okay. So you have to show up as a stable, reliable presence in her life. And the consistency helps her feel secure and willing to, and it shows her that she can let her guard down. Okay. So you really have to kind of look at yourself objectively and try to see yourself from a third person's perspective, in that you can look at yourself and look at your actions, look at your words, look at your reactions, okay, to whatever she's got going on, and ask yourself, is this consistent? Am I the same? Like Barnett, like if somebody came through and looked at a movie reel of how you handle situations, are you consistent? And it takes practice to be able to step back and do that on your own, or like of yourself, okay? And another one is to follow through on promises, okay? So if you say you're gonna do something, do it, right? No matter how small, you build credibility and deepen our trust through your leadership, right? Through keeping your word. And this actually has a different effect down the line if you guys develop a dynamic, because she's going to do something at some point that's going to require a punishment. And if you don't follow through on your promises and you say, hey, this is a problem, at the end of the day, when we reconvene, we're going to be addressing this. Okay? You're going to get a spanking. There's going to be a lecture, whatever. Okay? However you choose to do it. And then by the end of the day, you're feeling tired. You don't address the situation. You don't even bring it up. She's going to notice this. Trust me. Like, your inconsistencies are noticed. Just understand that. Okay? You don't get a free pass because you choose to ignore it or procrastinate or forget. No doubt the submissive is not. And maybe it has something to do with perfectionism, because I've noticed that, with my girls, there is a sense of perfectionism. And I hear other subs that are not mine talk about perfectionism. So I think there's something to do with that. And it's probably mixed with like insecurity and, seeking to be accepted and valued. And so they try really hard to make sure that whatever they do is perfect. Well, there's another edge to that, okay? Because in order to do that perfectionism, it requires a high level of perception. And what, you think that it only works for themselves? No. They're going to, that same perception, it's with everything around them, including you. And they've brought up shit where, not like stuff that like, hey, you did this, but details. Remembering words and phrases that I said weeks ago. And it's like their recall of certain things just blows my mind. And it's not like they're bringing this up in conversation, but I'm always having them do journals. So journals or diaries or whatever. And they'll recall scenarios and quote what I said word for word in the situation. And I'm like, holy shit. So they kind of like gives you this, like a reminder, like, you need to watch what you say and what you do. And not out of fear, but just as a reminder that you need to be consistent. And that you need to follow through on the things that you say. Because when you don't, it's recognized and it's cataloged. All right? And again, not out of fear, but it's like, the whole idea is to give her something solid to remove everything on. Okay? So your consistency and follow through has to do with you being that solid thing. Right? It's not something that you convince her of. It's something that you show. Okay? So like, shout out to Steve. He always says, don't talk about it, be about it. Don't tell her what you're going to do. Just fucking do it. Don't tell her who you are. Just be it. Okay? Because that's what shifts her emotions. Talking about this shit, until you're blue in the face doesn't do anything. Even if everything you have to say is factually true. How does she feel? Do your words and actions allow her to feel safe? That's what it comes down to. Okay, so moving on to the effective communication and boundaries, so you're going to have open dialogue. Okay, and the important part of open dialogue is to create a judgment-free zone where she feels safe expressing her thoughts, concerns, ideas, fantasies, kinks, trauma, all of it. Okay, and you can't have any judgment around any of these things. Okay, I have like one barrier when it comes to this. If it's anything having to do with children or animals. So if she's like, oh yeah, like when I was a kid, I used to torture animals. Sorry to hear that, but you're being ejected from my life right now. Like, I don't care if she was fucking 6 years old. Like, that just shows there's something fucking like a screw loose in your brain. And I'm not dealing with it. But aside from that, I have no barriers as far as what can be talked about. All right. It's serious. Yeah, we're getting into this. Why do you say allow her to feel safe? Because that's what allows women to feel to be vulnerable, and this is what is required for submission. A woman can't actually submit. She can perform the actions of submission, but she can't actually submit like with her soul if she does not feel safe. It's not going to happen. Now, once within a dynamic, see, that's the interesting thing. There's so many of these like contradictory sort of scenarios. So you could have like a within a trusted dynamic situations that challenge her sense of safety, right? But that's because there's the underlying foundation that the trust and safety is already there. Okay. Once you set a boundary, you stand on business. You don't go back and change your mind and say maybe I should give her another chance. Yeah, correct. Yeah, you don't do any of that stuff. That's right. So yeah, you're gonna want to have that open, clear dialogue. Okay. So, and then the other part about the boundaries rules is that you want to. It's a couple of different angles. So, like on one end, you don't want to give her the sense that she can just like say and do whatever she wants, right? Now, if she has, a natural inclination to submission, she's not going to do that anyways, right? But it doesn't hurt to make obvious things obvious, such as general manners. Okay, general manners, acting with class, speaking with class, behaving with class. Now, you are the leader, yes, so you have to be the rule. You can't set a rule that you aren't. So if you're setting a rule about, having a certain level of respect, having a certain level of decorum, you can't act outside of that, and then expect her to. Okay, this can't be a do as I say, not as I do. It's just do as I do, and that's it. So you have to be the rule. And then the other part about setting boundaries and rules is that by you step forward and setting these, right, what this does is it sets the frame that you're basically a step up. All right, you're not on equal playing ground here. You're the one who's in charge. You're the one who's in the lead. Now, it doesn't mean that their needs, desires, and their own boundaries don't matter, okay? But you're as the leader, you're like a benevolent leader. You take those things into account, right? And then it becomes a bit of a balancing act to see that, if their needs and desires are encroaching too much upon the natural flow of your dynamic, okay, or the natural flow of your program, all right? Because not everything's going to be perfect in that way. So the most ideal scenario is to have like the woman or the submissive's wants and needs to be in alignment with your program or your dynamic already. Or if there does need to be some sort of adjustments, it's not great. You don't have to shift too much, or she doesn't have to adapt too much. Because if there's a high level of adaptation, then that's going to cause resistance and likely cause resentment down the line. Okay? So setting rules and boundaries shouldn't be tough to do, nor should it be tough to follow. All right, so the consistent reinforcement and encouragement. So the positive reinforcement I mentioned, that's really, really important. And you want to pay more attention to the things that she's doing in accordance with what you believe should be done, as it pertains to your dynamic. And you don't want to focus too much like on the things that she's not doing. You want to focus more on the things that she is doing. And that really helps bring about more of the things that she's doing. And you do this with the positive reinforcement. All right. Now, there's always going to be shit that she doesn't do right, and things, that you don't want to put too much attention on that, because it's like you could imagine, say, like a parent and a child, and the child does do things that are right and praiseworthy, but for whatever reason, the parent is only focusing on the negative, always focusing on the little faults and the big faults, constantly harping on the child. And then it's like the kid starts feeling like, I'm broken, because all you're doing is associating their sense of self with the shit that they're doing wrong. And you don't want the submissive to feel this way. Okay, remember the whole, one of the like main, I was gonna say like the whole point, but one of the main characteristics of a good, healthy dynamic is transformation. And it's not about transforming them into a bigger piece of shit. Do you see what I'm saying? Like if they're feeling bad, you don't want to make them feel worse. Okay, you want to transform and transfer them to a higher state of consciousness, a higher state of being, something that's freer, something that's lighter, something that's more positive. Okay, so you focus on only the things that they're doing right, except for maybe the heavy, egregious things that just have to be addressed, right? But other than that, let little things fly and put more attention on the things you're doing right. And you're going to want to put in positive reinforcement with direct verbal attention. So she does something in your midst and you really like it. You bring a focused attention to it. Call her over. Hey, baby, come here, come here. And you put a little slap on your lap, right? Come here, come sit, have her sit on your lap if you like pat your leg, right? And you bring attention, say, listen, when you did XYZ, I loved that. I love seeing this side of you. It's so fucking sexy, right? And you could be stroking her back while doing this, right? Giving pleasant physical sensations, rubbing her ass, grabbing her ass. Maybe when she gets up, giving her a light smack on the butt. Nothing crazy. And just let her feel the approval, right? And let her see your face of, how much you enjoy her behavior, right? Or whatever it is that she did, right? That's more powerful than giving her a scolding for forgetting to fucking put the milk in the right spot in the refrigerator. You know what I'm saying? You're going to get more out of it with this, with this other stuff. So, and now the gentle guidance. Okay, so when corrections are needed, frame them constructively, all right, focusing on growth and learning, which can strengthen and her dedication to the dynamic. So there will be times when you need to correct her, all right? And you want to get the idea out of their head that they're receiving a punishment, okay? And you want to get the notion in their mind that this is not a punishment, it's a correction. Okay. And the corrections, they can take all different forms. All right. Sometimes a correction can take the form of a spanking. Sometimes it's taken in the form of a lecture. Sometimes it's taken in the form of sitting in a corner quietly. Sometimes it's taken in the form of writing an essay. Right. So it can take all kinds of forms, and there's no one right way to go about it except for this. I gotta remember to keep like a brush with me when I'm streaming, so I can, because like my hairs curl up in my nose, it drives me insane. You want to make it effective, okay? So I'll give you like a harsh example. If a submissive does something wrong, and she happens to be a high-level masochist, spanking will do nothing to get the message across. She'll actually be getting something she really enjoys. She likes pain. She has a high threshold for pain. So making her feel the physical pain through a spanking to get her to understand that what she did was wrong won't do anything. It's about understanding their likes and their dislikes. What helps them feel, right? And the things that help a woman feel that accountability isn't, varies. There's no one rigid way to go through this. It's very individual. So you have to take the time to work out, understand, or maybe directly ask the things that they like and don't like. All right. And it could be super simple things. Like, let's say they have OCD. Okay. And you make them put on 2 different color pairs of socks. That will drive them fucking insane. That will give them serious emotional tension. All right, if they have like high level of OCD and that's something that they must have, okay, make them put on 2 different color socks or 2 different fitting socks. So one's like looser and short, one's tighter and tall, one's blue and one's red. That will drive them fucking insane that they have to do this. Okay, maybe they have to get dressed this way and wear these socks all day long. All right, maybe make one shoe tighter than the other. And you know that this is something that will really dig into their emotions. Okay, you see how it doesn't have to be harsh or grandiose. It just has to be the right kind of pressure to push their button to make them feel. All right, to make them feel and notice that they've done something wrong. Okay, and that takes an understanding of the subtleties, a sensitivity to what they are, what's about them. And I don't mean sensitivity in terms of like crying or anything like that. I mean sensitive in your awareness of being able to pick up on cues and pick up on symbols and signs. And then it also works on the other end too, when you're looking for reasons to reward her, okay, for the same reason. Like, let's say, we've read about like love languages and shit. I think that stuff is kind of nonsense, but just to use that as an example, one person's love language could be quality time, okay? Another one is gift giving. Let's say hers is quality time, but you give her a gift. It's not going to do much. It's not going to be pushing that button in her to make her feel seen, appreciated, loved, cherished. It's not going to do anything. She might be like, oh, that's really nice, but it doesn't penetrate, okay? The whole notion around leadership, influence, and domination is you want to penetrate. That's the whole point. That's the goal, is to penetrate. Now, that calls into question, what is your motivation? Do you know how? Can you do it effectively to cause transformation with that penetration? You don't just want to penetrate for the sake of doing it and going, haha, look what I did. It's like, okay, you fucking idiot. You have no foresight, right? You have no plan. You have no vision. What the fuck are you doing this for? Just so you can tell your friends? Okay, great. So you're not good at creating anything. Good job. Okay? So it's about having the right motivation and reasoning behind your actions. That's important. So all of this stuff is about penetrating her so that you can transform her, help her take off more layers of armor so that she doesn't fucking need it, open her vulnerability, open her trust. This will grow her attachment to you, seeking of your guidance, absorbing your information, absorbing your worldview, your beliefs, your habits, your rituals, all of it. And now she becomes this thing that's assimilated to you. She becomes part of you. Right? And then there's this synergistic thing that happens between the two people. It's a really, really powerful fucking bond. Like, more so than fucking marriage. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess it's kind of like what marriage should be. And, truth be told, when I call her a submissive, I take that way more serious than marriage. Because it's like anybody can walk into a courthouse, pay the fee, sign on the line, and now you're married. Okay? It's another thing to submit, to become part of me, to bend both knees, put your head on the floor, your arms outstretched, both physically and, metaphorically, or from the inside and the outside. That's a huge deal. And if the woman knows herself and understands herself, she'll know that that's a huge deal as well. That can't just happen and by choice. She has to be encouraged and inspired and led without force to that place. And she feels so safe to do that with her head on the floor and not be concerned about looking around to make sure everything's okay. Like, that is a massive level of commitment, of a massive level of letting go. And when women let go, that's actually how they commit. It's, again, another weird, like, conundrum, right? An irony of the game. I'm confused, such as leading, I don't understand. Well, you're just going to have to listen to more information. I don't recognize your name, Atarius. Welcome. So, what's up, Unique? Good to see you, buddy. So, just look through more of my information. That's all I could say. If you want to talk, like there's a schedule link in the description of all of my videos, and we could just get on a call and I can answer your questions. Because a lot of these things, it's not so linear. It's not like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you set these up. It's more spherical. It's not linear, and spherical, not just around on the surface, but also inside that surface as well. So if you imagine a ball, like a bouncy ball, not solid, it's the outer surface as well as the inner surface of that sphere, and they're both necessary. They both matter, and if they're fucked up, then it's not going to work. So if you just want to learn more about what I'm talking about, like this stuff is, it goes deeper. It goes deeper within yourself. It's not easy, okay? Like you haven't made it just because, like I said, you got a flogger and she's wearing some fucking vinyl and does what you say and you've like spanked her ass with it. Like whoop-de-doo, okay? I'm glad you had fun, but that's not submission and you're not dominating. You're pretending. You're doing cosplay of this world. And that's fine. I'm not criticizing it, but I just don't want you to think that it's something that it isn't, okay? It takes a lot more understanding, dedication, and will to create this in someone. Okay. So where was I? The guidance. All right. So let me move on. All right, to like what to avoid. Okay. So obviously, avoiding consistency. All right, being unpredictable or failing to follow through on promises will erode trust and make it hard for her to feel secure in the dynamic, right? There's really no other way to explain it. Like when you're inconsistent, it fucks everything up. Avoid neglecting communication. So don't assume she knows what you want or what's in your head or how you feel. Lack of clear, open communication can lead to misunderstandings and erode the foundation of trust. You see, like it's all connected to trust and consistency. So if you have a habit of being fucking passive aggressive and communicating like a bitch, then this isn't going to work. You have to be very comfortable with communicating directly and not from an emotional place. Ever. You could be completely disrespected. And again, consistency. You communicate it through groundedness. And I tell you, there's, like, if you can imagine like two men who are ready to kill you, they're equal in every way, except one is screaming and flailing about going crazy and he wants to kill you. Surely that's frightening, okay? But the other guy, he's calm. He looks at you so directly, he doesn't even fucking blink. And he tells you he's going to kill you. That level of fear is far greater than the guy who's flipping out and losing his fucking mind. Okay? Far greater. You know, it's like Silence of the Lambs type shit. Where he's like, I'm going to eat you later. And that's it. It's just a fact of the matter. He's not joking around. He's not flailing about. It's a known fact. You're done. You're dead, right? I'm not saying like you're going to kill anybody, but that's what I'm saying is that when you're calm and collected about everything, the highs as well as the lows, right? It becomes so much more impactful when you're not overly excited, overly happy, overly sad, overly angry, overly frustrated, nothing, okay? You are just fucking consistent, reliable, okay? And surely this might bother the girl sometimes, right? Because she wants to share in her excitement, right? Or her happiness, or her sadness, or her anger. She wants to pull you in. And this is what a lot of guys fail at. They're like, oh, let me emotionally connect with her and be on her level. Nope. Now you're just in the same cesspool of emotion that she's in. And if you stay there for too long, respect will go away. Okay? What they mean when they say, I want more emotional connection, is they're actually saying, I want more emotional stimulation. That's what they're saying. And you can stimulate their emotions without being emotional. But most guys don't know this. And most shows, like women don't even know this, right? What they're actually asking for. The way they feel connected is by having their emotions stimulated. So the other part, the last part here, is to avoid using manipulation, coercion, or force. Okay, never pressure or manipulate her into submission. This can breed resentment and damage. It will create resistance. It will create fear. All right, and not fear in a good way, like fear of losing your approval. It's going to be fear of like being thrown away or fear of being harmed. Okay, that's not something that you want her to associate with you. Okay, genuine submission should come from a place of trust, willingness, and free will, not fear and obligation. Okay, and I had a great breakthrough with one of my guys, and he was really trying to establish a framework within this relationship, but her personality was such that as well thought out as it was, the rigidity just was not working. And he sat her down and said, listen, you know what I've been after. And I want to let you know that I'm dropping it all. I'm not going to be really upholding this dynamic. I have no expectations, no pressure whatsoever. And he said, listen, I'm not going to push it away. And he had just a few things started, right? As far as like expectations, rules, and things of that nature. And he said, listen, this, they're still here, but I'm not expecting them of you. If you so choose to do these things, if you're inspired to say, behave, and do these things, then please, by all means, go for it. And it will be accepted, it will be cherished, it will be recognized. But I'm not expecting it anymore. And literally, the minute that he said that, a tremendous weight went off of her. She felt lighter, she felt freer, and she started doing the things that he wanted her to do in the first place. So just take that to understand that domination doesn't mean force. It doesn't mean ruling with an iron fist. It doesn't mean control, right? The control, but it does happen, right? The control happens. The leading with an iron fist happens. The letting go of their will into your will happens, but it's a development. Okay, it's an unearthing. It's a weaving together. That's what happens, and the whole idea is you're in this position of knowledge, of knowing. Okay, and you allow them to come to you. You allow them to become woven into your structure. You don't grab them, put them in, and then weave them into it. Okay, you're not like a spider. Okay. You want them to come right into your web and they can roll themselves into it. And you don't do anything except maintain that web. Okay? You don't do shit. That's how it is. Okay? And the only real way to do that is through self-knowledge. That's the beginning part. You have to know who and what and how of you. And that's what the large part of my training is all about. We spend more time focusing, developing, understanding the real you than developing a program. Like I would say, like the first half to the first 2/3 is all about you. Once you have that down, everything else that you want to create is a fucking breeze. It's a breeze. Because you're no longer trying to do something. It's just now an extension of your being, which is now grounded, centered, and in full knowledge. Super easy. So, all right, I'm going to close this one here. Pardon the late start. I was having some technical issues, but I appreciate you being here. And for those watching on the replay, I appreciate you as well. If anyone has any questions, let me just pop this in here from Unique. So many women are reluctant to admit that they like to be dominated due to fears of being judged. They want to submit to a man who knows what he's doing. No, their main fear is being destroyed. That's what their main fear is. There is a great desire to submit. There is a great desire to let go. Okay. And guys may say on the surface or in the short term, yes, I would love to do that. I would never let you fall. I would never let you break. All right. I want you to be. And then they get that and then they move on. And then the woman shatters. Okay. Now, I'm not telling you to, be a moral ninny and sit here and wag my finger at people. Listen, do what you want. Okay. I'm not in the business of damaging people, because the more she submits, again, like I said, the more soft she is, which means that she can be damaged more easily. And the level that I take things, if I were to drop them, they would end up in a psychiatric institution, because I remove identity. Their thoughts are for me. Their actions are for me. Their feelings are for me. That's what happens. And it's not like out of my own ego. It's just something that occurs. It's not something that I'm trying to push into existence. Okay. So really the greatest fear is the shattering of themselves. And it's not just like, oh, my feelings are hurt. It's a shattering of one's identity. And if you've ever done high amounts of LSD, you'll know what that feels like. And it's scary as fuck. The thing is, though, is that the trip from LSD ends eventually, but this doesn't. So that's what they're really afraid of. They do love the idea of submission. They do love the idea of being led so much that their emotions and their mind and everything can just let go and be free. And then they start blossoming. Like, it's crazy. It's such a strange process, because the first process is you're peeling off petals. Like, if you ever taken apart a rose and you start peeling it apart and you get down to that core, and then you start putting them back, but not the same petals. It's a very strange process, but beautiful and unique to observe. But it's an act of creation. This is like the act of an artist, right? Of putting something into existence and having a willing participant. So more like I'm the painter and they're the canvas. And a lot of times the canvas is not bare, right? There's stuff on there, and you have to use your turpentine and get it all off, okay? But that's their identity. That's who they think they are. That's their beliefs. That's their moral compass, their rationales, like all sorts of stuff, okay? And over time, you just start wiping all that off. And the more you remove, the more responsibility goes on your shoulders, okay? And so with that, I would say, choose the right ones, okay? Like, this isn't something that you want to put as much energy into with just about anyone. They might not be grateful, they might not be receptive, or there might be certain things in there that you can't fix, okay? Like, if there's a tear in the canvas, no amount of paint is going to fix that, all right? Like, you're sure you can stitch it up, but it's not going to be the same. I talked about this in another stream. Like, if you ever have any scars, okay, and it's healed, the scar tissue, I mean, it works just fine. You're not like continuously bleeding or whatever, but the sensations, the nerves just don't work the same. Either it's completely numb or it's weird, like it feels funny, okay? It's not gonna be the same if you stitch up that canvas, all right? You help heal a certain thing, or if she's healed on her own, with therapy or whatever, it's just not the same. So in my professional opinion, I would say that if you're going to go down into these depths of domination and submission to the point where there's like identity fusion, which means a letting go of hers, okay, make sure you're doing it with somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of fucked up shit in their life, okay? They're not coming from parents that abuse them. They don't have deep psychological trauma. Like, that's really important, okay? Well, it becomes about balance, but I would say that it just comes from awareness. Okay, like the more you know these things, the it's you're less impulsive to do things. Okay, sure, yeah. Like if I sense that she's got some fucked up shit going on, but she's cute, she likes to have fun. Sure, come on over here, bend over. We'll give you a nice spanking. Okay, but if I'm sensing like, okay, there's some problems, some deep problems in there, I don't want to be handling that. I don't want to dive into that whatsoever. Okay. And because I know it's going to cause ripples, it's going to cause problems, and perhaps it won't, but I don't want to take that risk. I want things to be easier, right? More natural. And that's really what you're going for. Like I said, you don't want a lot of adjustment to get into your dynamic or your program, right? You don't want them to adjust a lot. Okay, you want it to be somewhat natural feeling for them to behave in accordance with you. And so I guess that's where like a lot of the patience comes in, and that's where the balance is at. So, all right, well, if anybody has any questions, hit me up via email or Instagram. All that information is in the bio, or I'm sorry, the description of this video. And yeah, you can set up a call. We'll have a free call, and we can discuss anything you want, anything that's on the shows or your personal life, and we can get it going on. Also, if you want to increase your sex life, you want to have a lot more fun, understand a little bit more of these things in the sexual arena, grab my book, How to Be a Dominant Lover. That is also in the description of all my videos. Go to the link, check it out, and I'll send you a copy. All right, until next time, have yourself a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.